All right, good morning. So today I was thinking we'd talk about how AI is going to be affecting governments still, because that's actually it's a pretty new thing for governments to be adopting AI. Well, in sort of like a broader respect anyway still. Now, there are obviously some countries that have been getting ahead of other countries in that respect. I would say for sure countries that have been using AI in terms of like their surveillance apparatus. Notably, I'd say China is definitely one that has been doing that for a long time. And this is for getting into stuff like sort of like identifying people, vehicles and what have you, through their very, very large network of CCTV cameras. So probably it's definitely the most surveilled country in the world. But beyond sort of like the security apparatus, I think it's still a very, very early stage in terms of using AI for government in terms of operational things like sort of throughout the bureaucracy, and also for decision making or helping decision making, and that is something that is definitely new, and I don't think has been deeply adopted yet still. As far as I can understand, decisions are still made by committee of people, and people are still drafting these things. But at what point is AI going to start drafting these bills? Is AI going to start providing sort of advisory services to politicians in terms of helping them actually make better, let's hope, better choices, right? What are the implications of that? I would say a major sort of crux of that is going to be where they are sourcing the AI from in the first place, right? You probably wouldn't want, let's say, a Western government using a Chinese AI model to help them make decisions, right? That obviously would not be. There would be some conflict of interest there, let's say, to say the least, right? So that's obviously going to matter, like what the training data was to create the model, where the model was created in the first place, and all of that. I don't think it's going to be happening very quickly in that respect. Like, I think probably the first things that they are going to be implementing, and it seems that they've already made announcements for things like this, would be to help with like the operational side of things. Stuff like speeding up sort of the bureaucratic processes, reviewing applications and what have you. Now, we've seen this already in the world of business, right? We have AIs that are helping in HR, for example, screening applicants, reviewing resumes and things like that. And there have been definitely mixed results. And there are people who have figured out sort of like how to game the system in terms of like getting through that sort of automated screening process. And then there have been, complaints about discrimination of the models towards like specific groups of people and what have you. Those are all growing pains, pretty minor issues, frankly. They are solvable. And, if they haven't already been solved in some applications. Now, but when it comes to government, I would say the margin for error is smaller than it is in business. Because in business, typically you have choices, right? So if I don't get a job at company A, I can still go apply to company B, C, and D, right? But if the government rejects my application for, I don't know, a building permit or something, because of a faulty AI, I don't have any, I can't go to another government and try again, right? I would have to keep plugging away. And then if it's getting to the point where they're saying, oh, okay, we're going to make the government leaner by relying on these AI systems, right? And then the AI system basically like bugs you out, you know, and then who are you supposed to talk to, right? How does that get solved, right? Because, you know, if your only recourse again is to talk to another AI, and that AI is going to be part of the same system that rejected you erroneously in the first place, what do you do, right? And that could cause some serious frustration for people, you know, in terms of that. So definitely the margin for error is smaller in government. So they do need to be more careful in how they approach this. But at the same time, they do need to also move fast because, again, advantages, right? You know, the relationship between, you know, industry and government, you know, is sort of like what helps countries be competitive, right? So countries where industry and government have a good relationship, they're able to, you know, cooperate and, you know, work to each other's benefit. Those countries succeed, right? Whereas, you know, if a government creates a hostile environment for business, be it either intentionally or unintentionally, you know, through use of technology or through use of human ineptitude, then yeah, that does not create an advantageous situation for that country, ultimately, right? And if you look at the goal of a government, you know, what is the objective of a government? That varies from country to country. You know, countries are at different stages of development. They have different cultures, different populations that they're catering to, right? But if we can just sort of say that ultimately it's like we want, like a government wants its people to be happy and successful, more or less happy, healthy, successful, prosperous, and what have you. Then yeah, it's in their best interest to adopt these technologies to speed up attaining those objectives for their population, right? And that, I think that's the lens that everything should be viewed through, right? So if the government is saying, okay, we're going to use this AI system to, you know, tackle, you know, problem XYZ, right? Then, you know, what's the end result of that going to be? Okay, so let's say if it's going to cut down on wait times for, you know, processing applications for, you know, permits or whatever, right? That's good. That speeds up business for people. If business is sped up, people can be more productive, can be more prosperous, and that is a net benefit, right? So that is a good thing, right? Now, if governments are utilizing AI to, you know, draft bills and make decisions, and let's say that AI is not taking into account the actual will of the people and is more just a reflection of, let's say how would I put this still? The opinions of specific politicians within the certain government that has, you know, it's in power, and it acts more like an echo chamber, or just a reflection of what that person would already want, and, you know, gives them sort of like, you know, talking points and ways to try and like convince, make convincing arguments to support sort of a pre-existing opinion. Doesn't necessarily broaden the scope of perspective of those politicians to maybe include large segments of the population who are dissatisfied with the current government's performance or behavior. That is just going to lead to more conflict and discord, right? And that's no good. So yeah, I think there's definitely good opportunity here for the use of AI, but it needs to be done in a way that that doesn't end up having us fall into these pitfalls where, you know, it's either going against what the actual objectives should be, and it doesn't create like AI-driven echo chambers for politicians, for example, right? Which is bad enough as it is without AI, frankly. You know, and we've seen, especially in the Western world, sort of like the polarization. It's often really two parties. It doesn't matter what country you're in still. Even if they do have like 5 or 6 parties, it's really usually only 2 significant parties that would even have the capability to win an election and form a government, right? Obviously, this doesn't apply to authoritarian governments. They kind of have their own sort of way to apply things, and that's actually, when we look at the competitiveness between countries, so this is both an advantage and a disadvantage for authoritarian governments, I'd say, because they can go ahead and unilaterally make all kinds of changes and implementations, and they don't have to worry about what the people think, per se. So that can lead to faster decision making, faster implementation processes. But it can be a downside, because it also means with those faster implementation processes and faster decision making, that they can make the wrong decisions faster, and they can implement the wrong plans faster as well too, right? So it's not all fun and games for those guys either. So having a good diversity of viewpoints and opinions be factored into any sort of like AI decision making engine is really key there still, right? Because if you can find something that goes beyond, let's say, compromise, right? You don't always want to just have outright compromise, but at the same time, like you do want to understand that hey, this segment of the population firmly believes thing A and thing B, right? The current policies of the current government do not support thing A and thing B, and maybe is there a way to help try to communicate sort of to that segment of the population why this is happening? And I think this is currently I think it's unsatisfactory the way that it's going about these days. So I can give you Canada, for example, right? When they go into question period, which is sort of it's a televised broadcast of the members of parliament, which is like similar like congressmen if you're American, and basically they just like argue and like spit talking points that are pre-written, and nobody actually learns anything, nobody actually discusses anything, no progress gets done. It's a complete waste of time. It's a clown show, frankly. And the attitudes in there are really bad too. I mean, like, they'll border from indignant to condescending, and yeah, it's just ugh, right. You're not really seeing anything constructive happening there still. So, more neutrality and impartial sort of opinions from an AI system that could maybe help bridge the gap between sort of the polarity that we're seeing in government would be really useful as well. Like AI driven mediators, because I mean we can program that. That is not, it's not actually that difficult to do, really. To create an AI that can see both sides of the coin in a way that humans can't, right? Because ultimately humans are all colored by their personal experiences, right? So let's say you have a red team politician and a blue team politician, right? So a red team politician has had life experience that confirms sort of red team bias, and blue team politician has had life experiences that confirm the blue team bias, right? Well, the AI doesn't have any life experience except for what you put into it, right? The data that you train it on, right? So you can train it on a wide variety of information, and get it to understand the viewpoints of different people, different perspectives, and then really try to find more nuance, and try to help the communication as well too, because I think that's another one of the problems, is that the politicians don't seem to communicate very well, at least not publicly, right? If you have one side that's always condescending and the other side is always indignant. And I use those two words again specifically because that's sort of been my observation of loosely sort of watching Canadian politics, right? Seems the governing party, in this case the red team, just speaks in a very condescending manner, and then the blue team often speaks in a very indignant manner, right? And neither of those attitudes is really suitable for making forward progress, frankly, right? So yeah, definitely there's an opportunity there. So I think between sort of using AI in sort of the bureaucracy, speeding up administrative tasks, processing times and stuff. That's going to be excellent. That can reduce the costs of running government as well. And then, finding a way to create very good AI systems that can help communication and help decision making at the highest levels of government. The countries that figure this out and implement this well, they will have an advantage. In so long as the objective of their mandates is to, in fact, increase the happiness and prosperity of the population, this could be an excellent way to do it. All right, I'm going to cut it off there. We'll see you in the next one.